20 notifications on TikTok right now as the app is dying. Well, who knows? Maybe by the time this goes live, TikTok will still be there. We could just use this to go right into the episode.
Sure. Well,
fuck it.
Welcome to Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast with Wolverine and the X-Men Episode 2, Hindsight Part 2. I'm Rod, and this has been a week for us, or a week and a half for us in Los Angeles. If you live under a rock, then go check the news. I'm sure it's there. We're both safe now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look on my socials for a very lengthy update if you're a friend of mine, or if you're not, then just know that like things were hairy for a while, but I'm safe now. My bag, I don't know if it'll show in the shot, but my bags are, it's back there, packed over here still by the door because I don't know. It's just still a wild. Yeah, also, in case anybody has found us now from the new rock stars of the break room, they gave me a shout out as the guy at AMC.
Ron Wasserman, and there's another guy who's like a music YouTuber.
Hi, I'm that guy. I'm Rod Kim.
And I put a little reply video out there from an interaction with Eric Voss and Ron Wasserman and the Newton brothers and stuff. So, been talking.
And Rod, what are your socials?
Oh yeah, my socials. Wait, on TikTok, if it's still around, is Rod Kim Rocks. And Rod Kim on YouTube and Rod Kim Rocks on Instagram. I think that's it. I'm trying not to join more social platforms.
And I'm JC. You can find me on all social platforms at the John Carl, TheJohnCarle. And like Rod referenced, it's been a hectic week and a half. I made the mistake of saying last week, oh, hey, should we record on Thursday? Yeah, sure. As long as all of LA is not on fire. And at that time, I was literally outside of LA staying at a hotel for 4 days because I'm like, I just don't want to be here right now. So,
yeah, because it happened everywhere.
Yeah.
Except downtown. Downtown LA being the safest place in the city was not on any of our radars for our bingo cards or whatever you want to say.
No, definitely not. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our now bi-weekly podcast series. We're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode that we can find. This podcast started with the original 1992 X-Men, the animated series, which was building up to the release of X-Men 97, which we did watch all of them last year. Along the way, we completed that X-Men Evolution, and we launched our companion interview show, which we call the Xavier Files, and hopefully now that LA is calming down a bit, we'll be able to record some new episodes. Since season 2 of X-Men 97 isn't even announced for its launch date and probably means that's not happening this year, we're dedicating the entirety of 2025 to Wolverine and the X-Men.
So some quick reminders. We're a recap show about a series that started over 15 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want to spoil for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. And we're currently not sponsored by or affiliated with Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook. And at the time of this recording, we don't know if by the time this episode posted, if TikTok will still be there. But good thing Rod did a mass upload of all those remaining reels for us there. So.
Did I? Okay.
I don't know. I'm assuming you did. You were the TikTok guy.
I'll try. Yeah. TikTok is the mess. We've both been around long enough for different platforms to go away. This by far has been the messiest because it goes back and forth by the hour almost. Like, oh, it's going to stay around. Oh, it's going away. Oh, like this president. Whoever wrote that bill and decided the day would be like the presidential inauguration day or the day before.
Yeah.
Should never be allowed to work in government again.
That was absolutely intentional. There's no way it wasn't.
So it was intentional, but also like it's created the biggest mess. Anyway, on to the show. Today we're going to be talking about season 1, episode 2, titled Hindsight Part 2. It aired also along with part 1. Oh, okay. So they went at the same time, January 20th.
But part 3 was not on the same day.
Gotcha. Well, I guess that kind of makes sense. It was like a double, it was
double feature.
Yeah.
Sure.
So 2009. It currently sits at a 7.6 star rating on IMDb. I like this. I think I'm really going to like the show. I said that last episode. One little thing, though, they did have a previously on. So I wasn't sure, though, once the episode started, if I was still in the right episode. Because it wasn't like this. Like, they didn't reference the flashbacks at all and stuff. So I was a little bit confused.
They had the flashback. They had the shot of Wolverine seeing Storm and Xavier. And then...
in the previously on, but not during the actual episode.
Okay, fair.
Like Wolverine wasn't like... I saw things or something, or I don't know. So I'm guessing that means kind of like what you said last episode, like that's not him cognitively like seeing a flashback. That's just us seeing something, or I don't know.
I think it's because we didn't see Wolverine waking up from a dream or being unconscious.
Yeah. So that's
he was conscious the entire episode. There was no reason to see what was going on in that man's head.
Yeah. So after the previous Sion, which I don't know if you need to recap on, then listen to the last episode.
Yeah, we have a full episode about it. It's fine.
We see a lingering shot of the Genosha billboard with Magneto on it, which I guess is supposed to signal like really bad things are happening. It's so interesting how closely this like kind of. I could see why people said it was a spiritual successor to Evolution. Mm-hmm. So we see some feet against the backseat of a cop car, and you just know it's Toad. I'm not familiar with Toad literally being like a frog, but
it really depends on the era and the artist, because I've seen versions that look like the classic like jester version of Toad, the one that we saw in in like Pride of the X-Men and stuff like that. And then I've seen ones where he becomes like a little bit more reptilian, which happens around time, amphibian, not reptilian, but happens around the same time as Ray Park's version of him, which was like gross with boils and stuff like that. It really, really does depend on who the artist and what the era of the X-Men comics are.
Gotcha. Because I'm mostly actually used to the Toad that was in the Pride of the X-Men. Mm-hmm. Like I guess more of a jester look, like
the jester style, yeah.
Because it's just kind of like an Igor almost or something. And then it's only till Evolution really I started getting used to this kind of like punk teenager essentially attitude, which he kind of carries over here. You see like
but also had dreadlocks.
I was gonna bring that up. Like I don't know what to say about that. So if there's somebody more qualified, like it seemed like a choice. I'm not sure. I guess we'll see more of like what he's about. But yeah, we see like the slime.
It's like almost like a white Rastafarian guy dreadlock vibe for me. Yeah.
So we see like the slime get on the cops in the front seat, and I'm like, okay, it's Toad. And then just as soon as you think that, like they're like, oh yeah, it's Toad again. And then we see like I think we're locking into like our theories about this being more anime leaning. Because we see the cop car in front of them like fly like, I don't know, 20, 30 feet into the air, maybe more.
Oh yeah, cops are dying in this episode in that intro fight.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah.
And then they show Blob is doing that. They kind of went for like the more gross look, but also like very hulkish. He's just really strong.
Yeah, he was oversized, but they also like made sure there was a way that like he's drawn that it had like fatty deposits. It wasn't like X-Men 92. There was like he was big, but he wasn't gross. Mm-hmm. There was with this one, there were conscious decisions to make him feel gross.
Yeah, and Blob is he almost like had a Kingpin vibe to me, I guess, because the way they lit him, like you're like at a low angle looking up. I guess you're supposed to be Toad's point of view, and Blob is just like this is getting old, so you can tell he's like annoyed of. Continuously, I'm guessing the Brotherhood is doing like real trouble and Toad is doing like petty crime or something.
So, insight into wrestling. If you ever look at certain shots that are done backstage, if you ever have one of the people who's considered like a giant, like literally the name for this is called the Andre shot, where you would shoot somebody at that particular angle to emphasize how big they are. By doing that upward trajectory as you're like walking down the hallway and stuff like that. So
wrestling would be a good kind of context for Blob too, because like movable and really strong and stuff. And then we just like get rapid fire Brotherhood. I didn't know the Domino was ever part of Brotherhood, but I guess we'll. I
forgot to look that up in advance of this. I don't believe she's ever formally been a part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Gotcha. She had been like a mercenary, and that's where she gets like. Mixed up with like X-Force and stuff like that. But I hadn't seen her as like, I'm going to say full-fledged villain. Like they're not really doing shades of gray with the Brotherhood in this one. So
yeah. Other than her though, it's pretty much a Brotherhood that we like were familiar with from Evolution. It was Quicksilver and Avalanche. Avalanche like starts, although Avalanche is like beefy in this one. He's not like a skinny kid.
The design of Avalanche here reminds me of what's his face, the guy who plays Red Guardian. Like, there's
David Harbour.
Yeah, he is David Harbour, especially because this is more authentic to the comic book version, not necessarily the facial hair aspect of it, but he's a dude who is not from America. Like we talked about, Lance had a lot of changes to him.
Yeah.
He was like the foreign Avalanche, and it totally reminded me of Red Guardian. Obviously, the two have no connection to each other, but just the structure and visual of them definitely felt that way for me.
Yeah, I mean, RDJ is coming back as Doom, so why not Red Guardian coming back as Avalanche? I don't know. Well, nothing matters.
Because they're going to still use him in the Thunderbolts movie, which is coming out in a few months.
They'll just do both. I don't know. Like we don't know what's going on with Marvel right now. They're being intimidated by James Gunn taking over DC.
But I will say I don't love this version of Quicksilver because Quicksilver doesn't feel sleek. He feels broader.
I get what you mean.
Yeah. Like, I'm cool with it for Avalanche, like being the jacked up version of him and stuff like that. But there's something where Pietro is just a little bit too like thick, like from a muscle perspective.
I guess I can see that. Yeah. Yeah, I like Avalanche.
He also looked like he was like 45. Like his face looked fucking old.
Yeah, because they were all like, the anime villain kind of, even Rogue, which we'll get into when she appears later. But yeah, the Avalanche makes a sinkhole under the cop car, and then Quicksilver runs up and tells the cops, like, take this message to Senator Kelly. The Brotherhood's coming after you, and it's like, you were saying, like they're just going full like mustache twirling villain.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, or is that when the credits rolled?
That's when the intro starts. Yeah,
I didn't take a note of that. And I think I'm not going to watch these credits every time, but like I kind of dig this style. Like the song's not as memorable, but like it's a very cinematic. We're seeing the X-Men. It looks like before the events we're seeing now, like when they were still like on top of their game. But
I will say I paid attention to it now going through the first episode. Rogue is not seen in that intro at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get a little bit more context of what's happening.
Right. Like, I wasn't paying attention to it in the first episode of, like, who's there, who's on the team.
Yeah.
Now, because this was, like, part of the recruitment stuff, which we knew was going to start happening, I was paying, like, more, like, detailed attention to it. And I was like, oh, that's a choice. Because she's been in a speaking role in these first two episodes.
Yeah. I was like, they went with like a third version of Rogue as far as like the anime shows go. Like, so she's not like some like, a Southern gal, and she's not like a moody teenager. It's like I don't like I think she's in the villain. We'll get into her, but like, so then we come back and there's a newspaper headline of what happened, and it comes down and reveals it's Kelly reading that or holding it up at a press conference somewhere. That resembles some meetings that are happening in the last decade here. I don't know how else to put it. It was like
it rang very, very true.
Right? Years before, I don't know. It's obviously not like a parody of what's happening now because it was 15 years ago. But I was like, wow, okay. This has always been a problem. Off to the side, like away from the crowd, we see Warren Worthington like in a limo, but his dad's like, you have to come out. So I'm guessing, are we assuming like Warren is either like not a teenager, but a young adult, I guess, like early 20s or something?
I assume everybody outside of like Beast and Logan, I think, are probably mid-20s is my guess.
Like,
and maybe Rogue, or sorry, not Rogue, maybe Storm. But I think the vast majority, except for Kitty and Bobby, I think Kitty and Bobby are still kids, like 18.
Yeah,
but everybody else, everybody else I think is 20s, basically.
And so Warren is like, do I have to support this man? And his dad is like, well, he's a champion for the people, which is another thing that just like rang way too close.
Well, because the dad's not just a supporter of him, he's a financial supporter of him too, and they made sure to emphasize that part.
And it seems like either the supporter or like the majority supporter, like he can control where that campaign goes. So Kelly announces that he wants to fight back against the threat because of like what happened with the Brotherhood previously, or has been happening, but specifically cites the most recent event. And they unveil.
It focuses on registration too.
Oh, yeah,
that's a big piece
the
of
Mutant
it.
Registration Act.
Yeah.
And then they
Which you had started alluding to in the previous episode of thinking that was going to be a part of the MRD name. So, like, you were just an episode early for it. Yeah.
And I guess anytime you see, like, humans in the X-Men series get threatened, you just know that registration's, like, coming very soon. And then Kelly it tells what soldiers or something they're there to, like, unveil something. And they close up on it so hard that it just looks like a sentinel, like a foot or something. And then he says they're prowlers. And it's like the spider-scorpion sentinel thing.
So, no lie, dude, it instantly reminded me, and then I saw it in like one of the notes on one of the wikis. It looked like the Spider Slayer toy that they used in the Spider-Man TV show. Like that, it looked like a robotic scorpion. It was so much that vibe.
It would be funny if we find out that design happened because there was like a studio note to sell the toys. And whether or not it happened, that was like the plan, right? To like design something, kind of like Battle Cat from He-Man,
of course.
Like, just happened because they had like a model of a tiger or something from another toy line, and he was
and then they decided we need two of them, so just painted a different color.
Yeah, and it was disproportionate, but they were like, well, that's part of the allure. Is like he's a big cat, like compared to He-Man, and then he got animated into the show as like a really wimpy. Anyway, so I don't know. That would be funny if we found something like that out. But it pretty much goes haywire right away because it automatically detects Rogue, who's unregistered, and then goes after her. And then Kelly's like, "All right, shut her down." And then the soldier can't, which
seems like a design flaw,
right? It's like the trope that we're living in now with AI. We're like, "Oh, we'll just put controls on it." At what point has any sci-fi story worked out that the controls have
ever worked
for when you whether it's artificial or not, like when you manufacture intelligence or like allow things to learn? I think what we're finding out is like anything that has like a cognition will want to be free. So like
even the murder robot.
Yeah. So it's just doing like it's going for its objective. And like scaring everybody in the crowd, obviously. Everybody is scattering. And then the Prowler like chases Rogue like into the city and then corners her at the end of an alley. And then Warren, who we find out a little later is still trying to hide, but he still gets into spandex and flies with his giant wings.
Very quickly got into his spandex.
Yeah, I guess we just assume he's always in it. Yeah. Which I love that when I was a kid, I was just like, oh, that's just when you have superpowers, you just like this part of your skin or something. And now I'm getting older. I'm like, do you wear that all the time?
Like, that's got to be uncomfortable. Like, that's like a set of underoos underneath your clothes. I love that they went to like something that was kind of like the classic version. Like, he would just use random things as like I want to say in the first X-Men comic book in the 60s, he literally used like a mace as his weapon because they didn't know what else to give him. And here he just picks up a big rock. And that's it. Yeah. He just drops a big rock.
And then the Prowler shoots one of his wings. He goes under, and then Beast saves him. So it was just like this like nesting doll of getting rescued. And then the Prowler is going after Beast, and then Wolverine comes and slashes the Prowler and finally like takes it out.
He has great reveals in this show. Like, when he pops into action moments, like Wolverine, you could tell the team that did this series loves the character because there's so many, like, vibes from his best moments in this show. So
Gotcha. Yeah, it's always, like, a good, like, screenshot or something.
Yeah.
And then Warren is like, oh, it's good to see the X-Men back together. And Rogue is like, what? And Beast is like, well, we're working on that.
Yeah.
So then Beast tries to recruit Warren. And Warren explains to him, he's like, well, unfortunately, I'm kind of like in this like kind of family politics thing where I'm able to use my money to help mutants, kind of like, and he kind of implied under the table.
Yeah.
But if he outwardly supports a mutant thing, then his father will just cut him off. Which is a tricky place to be in. It's kind of like I don't know how to explain it. Like,
I mean, the family are probably at the, like, I want to say the original versions of the characters, it was probably millionaires, but now, like, inflation into the, late 2000s, he was probably a billionaire family. So he's like, I could do more good utilizing the resources than if I just jump over to this team, which your team's kind of a shit show. I don't think he wanted to say that, but I think he was kind of like vibing that.
We still haven't found out what happened at the mansion. So like, or I guess to all the X-Men. So it's probably, I don't know. We find out that he was like outed essentially. And so now he's kind of he has to like play by more strict rules. Then Wolverine tries to convince Rogue to come back. And she's like, yeah, no. Like, nobody wants to come back. So then we cut back to Senator Kelly.
Well, before we get back to Kelly, there was one part that I really did like, which was the back and forth between Wolverine and Rogue. And he's like, you should be back on the team. We could, we could do something together. Why don't you want to come back? And she's like, you not knowing is the reason why.
Oh, right.
So, like, there's something that is beyond him just abandoning the team, like when he was ready to leave in the last episode. There's something else that hasn't been touched on because she's too mad for it to just be him leaving. At least that's my vibe on it,
I love that we've been in this town long enough that to know, like, and to, you write, but I don't write, to know enough writers be like, oh, that was definitely a writer being like, we're gonna put that in as like a loose end to come back to.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, we can't watch things like normal people do in this city. So,
and then we cut to Kelly, who's at the remains of the rally, and he's yelling at Warren's dad. And Warren's dad is like, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna shut down the Prowlers because right now that's the enemy in the eyes of the people. And we're gonna go after the Brotherhood, but essentially he's like we're just gonna sit and wait for them to come after us so they can be the villains.
Yeah. Well, it's like you're gonna shut down the program because you looked like an asshole.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get registration to happen. It's like
it's
kind of like you take the step back, and then later after registration you could get the Prowlers back. Like that was how I kind of, he was like, we'll get our shit, don't worry, we just have to be smart. It's kind of like Kelly's playing chess and Warren Worthington Jr. is playing checkers, or sorry, playing checkers, playing chess. I fucked up the order. Yeah. Great.
Politics, man. What was the meme I saw that was like humanity was given like a blank world we could do anything in, and we chose like credit scores and taxes?
I haven't seen that one.
So like, okay, yeah, that's it. Rogue is walking alone somewhere in the city, and then Toad, I can't tell if I guess he was trying to get her. At first it looked like he didn't know who she was and was trying to mug her, mainly because he takes her glove off, which if you know Rogue is not something you would do necessarily. So she like,
but I think this is like all versions of Toad where he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she grabs his tongue, I think. And then, but it's a lot less violent of like an absorption than we've seen before. Like, there's no physical manifestation of it.
It like sucks their body in a little bit though. Yeah. Like,
I didn't notice that.
Even yeah, it like it almost looks like you start seeing like the veins like popping through kind of scenario. So it kind of like emaciates them briefly. But then her tongue becomes super long, which is fucking disgusting.
I was actually surprised she wasn't like, ew, gross.
Well, she was like, well, what have you been eating? Flies? But that's where we get the reveal of the Brotherhood surrounding her and stuff.
Yeah, so Avalanche, Quicksilver, and Domino, and Toad, I guess, and Blob.
Blob, too. And the Domino's like, oh, yeah, let's have the girls have a chat kind of scenario.
I was actually wondering if that's a tactic, because if she's lucky, does that include negotiations? That would be interesting, you know?
I've never seen it where it affected non-physical probabilities.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen it be an influence scenario.
Yeah. But they didn't go that way with this one. But I was like, oh, when she said, let's just be alone, I was like, huh. That would be an interesting take on this. Like, oh, just leave me alone. I'll ask her some questions and we'll get the answers we want. And so Domino essentially, like, kind of talks her into it. Makes a good point. Because Rogue was like, you're making things worse for everybody. she's like, well, things weren't great before. So everybody has a good point. Like, it's not making things better to make the enemy seem like the victim, but also you've been pushed to your limit. So what else you do?
And I got to imagine, like, there's a piece of this show that we've not seen about the world yet. You have Magneto has gone to Genosha. So something was the impetus to send Magneto to Genosha, right? I would also imagine there are probably people in this world theorizing that whatever happened to Xavier and Jean, if they even know about the Jean part of it, but regardless, there's probably some assumption it was an attack by these powers that be. And it's almost like, I don't want to call it conspiracy theory, but it almost is, where like the extremists would be like, well, they tried to kill one of our two leaders, so the other one fucked off, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And yeah. So like probably like Jean ran away or something.
Oh, well, I'm saying it's Magneto ran away because somebody tried to kill Xavier.
Gotcha.
So if you're somebody who's in this like shit scenario like the Brotherhood are, like, you might have imagined, well, that's the government trying to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
So
I get you. Yeah, and then we get our first little glimpse of Cyclops, not in the intro. I'm not used to seeing, like divorced dad, Cyclops. Like, he's got his stubble, he's watching the news, he blasts the TV. This Cyclops still has no regard for like the not as nice part of town.
No, fuck this whole part of town. I will say, and this is because you do not read the comics, and not shaming you for that, obviously, for any reason, but we get more sad moments of Cyclops in the comics than we have in much of the rest of the animated stuff. So I've gotten my fair share of Cyclops being sad, which also leads to me giving shit to Punker Donkey constantly on Instagram. But I've seen the broken version of Cyclops before, but for you, like, you've only seen like bad dad Cyclops at worst.
I've seen Cyclops get to being broken down in the shows.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think I've been introduced to him already, like at his lowest point. So like, it's funny because of the like how I established Cyclops in my head. Just seeing him in that state, I know that Jean's gone. Like, that's the only way he's in that state. Either she's gone, like dead or missing, or she had enough of something he did and left, and that's what left him in that place. But Wolverine kind of comes in and is like, all right, suck it up, bud. We're getting the band back together. And they argue.
Well, he gives a great line too. His line is basically like, oh, I guess you don't give a shit anymore if Jean's not around. Fuck the rest of us. That was what his gist was. And then they give the great reveal shot of Logan just being blasted across the street via the optic blast. It was great.
And now there's a hole the size of the apartment, because like Cyclops looked like he lived in like a studio apartment, and then he just like standing there like, okay, so what? I don't know. I'm too old to like. I'm just
put a tarp there.
Yeah, I'm just asking too many questions about. So yeah, he gets blasted out. Then at the Brotherhood, Rogue has agreed to join. And so she's with the Brotherhood staking out Senator Kelly's place,
which looks like way too nice of a house. Like, that literally looks like a mini White House.
I was gonna say mini White House, yeah, because they have the flag in the middle and then the columns and stuff. Which, if it wasn't in New York, it almost gave like a vibe of like a plantation home.
I was just gonna say, it kind of like, I've literally never seen the house where Bill Clinton lives, but I imagine his estate looks like that.
Yeah. Also, I guess
like it had an Arkansas like senator vibe, not a New York senator vibe.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I guess I don't know how, because I've never had a place that nice before, but like it's funny that a place that nice had such low security that they get that close to it in the open. So Quicksilver, when I say stake it out, I guess he like ran in or through it or something. He's like, yeah, he's not home. And so Avalanche is like, well, we're going to leave a message. I think Rogue tries to stop him. And he's like, well, no one's home. Like, we purposely like made sure that like this is a message, not trying to hurt anybody yet. And so they sink his house, completely demolish. They basically did what the X-Mansion, just kind of like level it. And then Blob points out there's like an SUV or Hummer or something
before we get to the Hummer, I do have a very important question. Pietro stole Chinese food from the house.
Yeah. How long?
Was he eating cold Chinese food straight out of the fridge? Or was there Chinese food that was still hot sitting out on a counter because he didn't have time to warm it up?
Yeah.
That's what bothered me.
Cold Chinese.
Cold Chinese noodles is not like I don't even really love cold pizza, and I'm a fucking Italian from the East Coast, but like cold Chinese noodles, like that just doesn't sound appetizing to me.
Unless it's soba noodles, but that does not look like what he had. Like cold soba is not really good.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I've ever had soba before.
It's like a buckwheat noodle in like a kind of a watery oil, like sesame like sauce, but it's not a thick sauce. It's a soup. It is an acquired taste, or not acquired taste. It's like a specific taste. Like I'm not surprised when people don't like it, but when you like it, you really like it. But that does not look like the container. Like that looks like a Chinese takeout container, and that's not like where you get soba noodles from. So I get what you mean. Although maybe we should add this to our list of questions if we ever get a hold of her from the Does It Fly podcast. Of like, would super speed heat something up from traveling that quickly? You know,
we really need to make a document to save these questions.
Right.
That's the first step.
So Blob points out that like there's a Hummer there. He rips off the top of it, and then they go joyriding with it. I guess they hot-wired it or something. And I love how they're driving through town, and I just thought that they were going to get like, so Quicksilver's driving, and then he looked over Rogue. He's like, "You want to drive?" And he like swaps them really fast. Yeah. And so I was like, "Oh, he's framing her because I guess the city's under like surveillance, like the MRD, like not surveillance.
There's just
like,
constant MRD surveillance around the city, no doubt.
So they pull up next to him, like, oh, she's framing them because clearly this is a Hummer with its roof ripped off.
But also, to your point, there is no security at Senator Kelly's, despite the fact that there was a thing that happened at this rally earlier that day. There's a Hummer with nobody in it. Dude, somebody was in that house and died. Yeah. Like let's call it out. There was security in there that they're just not acknowledging.
Yeah. And so like Blob's sticking out the top of it. Also there's a Hummer without the top, and they're like, be cool, maybe they won't notice. I'm like, do you think it's like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park if you don't move?
And also the suspension on that car is amazing because that thing was not like ass end like down. Like it was like it was even. Like props to whoever created that vehicle. So
it's magic.
But yeah, it's like, oh yeah, just chill and be cool, and then Toad just hawks a giant green loogie on the MRD troops. Which also, are we to believe that the MRD wasn't going to recognize them and pull them over in the first place?
That's what I mean, though. Like, yeah, they're just all hanging out of the car, especially Blob. That was the main thing. I was like, I guess if it was an intact Hummer, like, there's a little bit of plausibility there. Like, okay, just don't draw attention to us. But there's a double-sized man hanging out the top that was on the news.
And a green guy in the back seat. Like all the ones who are human presenting, even though Avalanche is wearing his fucking bucket helmet, so that's also an issue. But like, Rogue, I mean, even Domino. Domino's got like all white with the giant, like it's obvious. Unless these guys are like brand new to the MRD and have no idea like who the mutants in town are, like,
I thought about this over the holidays. I think like, all the like stormtrooper kind of, foot soldiers and stuff. I think my theory is they go through them so fast. By the time we see them, they're just recruiting anybody. Like, that's why there's always that, like, I can't shoot right, or like those henchmen are just whatever, or they're like, what was it in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie? They're just like teenagers recruited off the street to join a club.
Which, have you also noticed, I don't know, okay, so you live more on TikTok and I live more on Instagram. The video of the intro to the Foot Clan, it's like, fuck, if I was a teenager, I would have joined the Foot Clan too. It was awesome. Like, that clubhouse was dope.
Yeah, you got pizza and arcade games and
just tons of cigarettes before we all decided to not smoke anymore.
Listen, man, especially in the 90s, even now though, if you tell me there's a Nintendo and pizza, that's already sold me. Anything else is like
that's a bonus. Plus, there's like an underground fight club where you could watch like the sensei murder a kid.
So they drive away with the MRD chasing them, and then Avalanche is like, that's large destruction, like caves in the surrounding buildings onto the street to lose them.
And I literally start writing my note. I'm like, Avalanche murders a bunch of people, and then instantly it cuts to there's a bunch of abandoned warehouses that they drove by, and I'm like, oh, you fuckers, you covered it.
I just missed. I must have been like writing. That's so funny.
It was like literally like the first thing that was said, like as soon as they cut to that next scene. I was like, damn it, they actually like pulled back on it.
That's kind of like in the Phoenix Saga when they're like, oh, that like vacant
that
galaxy.
Planet, yeah, that whole planet's abandoned magically. Jean did not murder a billion people.
And so actually, now that's a good point. That was probably network censors are like, listen, we can't, because they did show like people in danger earlier. So they made like the danger like kind of real in this universe. Yeah. So Warren's dad is watching the news about that. No sooner is he watching that the Brotherhood drive through the wall of their home, which kind of, I don't know if you've seen it on Reels, but at least on TikTok, there was that video of a guy driving through the car dealership because he wanted to return his car.
And they wouldn't take it back.
And give that energy. He's like, told you I'd come back. And but instead of apologizing like that guy did, have you seen that guy's apology, by the way?
No.
He was on the news and he was like, nah, I made the bad decision. It was a bad day. I was like, that's...
Yes, you did, sir. You made a real bad call.
So Blob gets out not doing that. And there's, I don't know how to put it, like there's a whole like tussle and they're like, you're going to tell us where Kelly is. And he's like, I'm not. And like, well, we have ways. And then they kind of insinuate that Rogue is going to get the information. And
then Domino is like, she's like, come on, just do it. We're not going to hurt him. You know, I really dig this relationship between Domino and Rogue because all the others are the mustache twirling bad guys. Domino doesn't feel that way.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, she has confidence. She kind of has the similar confidence, or maybe this is just Domino's character, but like Zazie Beetz from the Deadpool movies version of Domino, kind of that like, just kind of like waltzing and falling through life. Like even a little later, there's a fight scene, and she just kind of like falls off a balcony and just like kind of grips onto the side.
Perfect shots it.
Yeah, like grips her legs onto the side of a catwalk or something. So this one, I think she has that thing where she's like not worried about anything. Because
aside from the Krakoan era X-Force story, because Domino gets really fucked up in that, I would say that is actually pretty accurate to her comic book story. Like even the recent Dazzler comic, which just wrapped up, she's the head of security for Dazzler's concert tour, and she's just like, you know, she's chill, but at the same time, she's like, you're not allowed to go out without me because people are trying to murder you, type stuff.
It's so funny to see what different characters in like comics or even movies do when they have like heightened abilities and things, compared to like what I would do with the same abilities, especially in my 40s. So like I was just thinking, like, if I was the luckiest person in the world or the most fortunate or whatever you call Domino's powers, I would like throw lottery tickets in the air and shoot at them, like, because I was just like, oh, you're gonna win $1 million, you know, like that's what I would do. I wouldn't be a mercenary or something, like. So Rogue is like kind of hesitating, putting her hand on Warren's. I guess he's still Warren, right? But
he's Warren Jr.
Yeah,
because Angel is Warren Worthington the third.
Yeah, so but Angel's dad.
Yeah,
putting her hand on his face, and then Domino just kind of like pushes the extra like few inches.
Warren 3 comes in, sees it, calls out Rogue, is like, what the hell? Blob tosses him, and then the extraction happens. Yeah.
And then she's like, I got it, and they take off. And so we go back to the mansion. Wolverine tells Beast, like, well, we don't got Rogue, definitely don't got Cyclops. And Beast is like, I think I found Kitty. She went back to live with her parents after everything went down, but like a couple days ago, like she just disappeared. We don't know what happened to her. He's like, Bobby is on board, but his parents won't let me speak to him, which is like a valid response from whether, you know, we agree with it or not as the viewers, like as parents of a teenager, like that tracks. It's what we said about evolution these last.
It definitely felt like it was inspired by the Bobby from the movies, where
I can see that.
Yeah, and I also love how they're like, yeah, and I talked to Colossus, he won't leave his family. Got it.
It's like an easy answer, but also that fits his character, so I guess.
Yeah, it's every version of that character. Like, he cares so much about his family and especially his little sister. Like, that is Peter. So,
and especially like for a guy that cares about his family but also has the power to protect him. I think that's like the thing is like a lot of us, when we get in these, even like, with everything that's been happening in LA last week, I think the thing that like really takes the wind out of you is when you're like, there's nothing I can do. But when you have somebody who's like literally made of steel or whatever he's supposed to be made out of, like, he can take care of his sister like physically in the situations. And then Iceman's parents won't let him talk, and then Warren just walks in. Warren talks to the X-Men a lot for not wanting to associate with mutant organizations. But he tells them, like, the Brotherhood got a hold of Rogue, so she might be with them now.
Not just might be, he straight up says she joined. He's not like mincing words about it. So
then we see Rogue leading the Brotherhood to a manufacturing plant, and they're like, "Are you sure he's going to be here?" He's like, "Yeah, in the morning they have a press conference here, so we can get him then."
There's a quick shot too that it's like Rogue's eyes of like her being sneaky, and I was like, "Oh, they're gonna do a double agent like story with her, like where it's like going through this episode." I don't legit know which side she's on right now.
Yeah, I love that some writer, whoever was on this like in his writer's room, at least one writer was like, her name is Rogue. We should make her a rogue. Same with Evolution. Like she goes rogue, right? Because that's one thing about 92 and definitely the movies. Not really a rogue. Cool name, but
speaking of the writers' room, though, this episode was directed by Stephen E. Gordon, who
nice.
We all know. So yeah, I just wanted to shout out Stephen.
So that tracks with the Brotherhood then. Okay, like that them having like it's almost a almost identical setup. Of people. Okay, that tracks. So then we see Beast. Everybody who's currently with the X-Men go to Bobby's family's house. Beast is talking to the parents in his trench coat and glasses because that's how you hide your fur still in this universe. And Bobby's parents are like, they're saying what everyone would say in the real world if you had a child in the X-Men. You're like, you almost got him killed last year. Yeah. No way. And then Beast was like,
yeah, we trusted you once and you fucked up the most major way.
And then Beast was like, well, he's technically 18. And it was like, that doesn't go well no matter what situation you say that phrase in. But then Bobby walks down the stairs and he's like, I want to go. And his mom's like, get back upstairs.
Get back to your fucking room.
And then Wolverine's like, all right, we tried it your way. They'd already shut the door on him. And he just kicks the door down. He's like, Bobby, come with us. They were like, I like this Wolverine.
What I would say is the line here is probably my favorite line outside of the original animated series in 97. Like, I think this line is better than any single line written in Evolution and what we've seen so far in Wolverine and the X-Men with your son's a mutant, deal with it.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, God, it's so basic, but it's visceral. Yeah. And I loved the shit out of it. And it reminded me of the scene from, I think it was X2, it could have been X3, I forgot which one it was, where there's like the moment with Bobby and his parents and Wolverine, and they're all in the room, and Bobby's brother like tattled on him or something like that to the cops. But it was like, it had the vibe of that scene, but was way stronger than that scene. And it was probably about, a quarter of the length of time, too.
Was that the one where the mom was like, can you try just not being a mutant?
Yeah. It was basically like, can you just stay in the closet? Like, that was literally what the vibe was. Yeah.
So he gets in that was another funny thing earlier when Beast and Wolverine are talking about who they have for the X-Men. It's like, well, it's me and you in a stolen helicopter. I thought that was a great, like, that could be like an emo band name, like
You, Me, and a Stolen Helicopter,
or like Beast, Wolverine, and a Stolen. It was a specific name of helicopter too. I can't remember. I don't know.
MRD.
Was it MRD?
It was an MRD helicopter.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, in a stolen MRD helicopter.
Gotcha. Okay, so it was for the MRD, not like a model. Gotcha. So, and so now they're taking off in the helicopter, and Bobby's like, I would have thought you got Kitty by now. And they're like, we don't know where she went. She's like, oh, she said she's heading to Genosha. And we're like, no, Kitty. Don't go.
I love they nail this version of Bobby, because Bobby's just like really like chill and flippant about it. He's like, oh yeah, she's like, she left this morning. Like, didn't you guys know? Like he's just so aloof that he thinks everybody else already knew what was going on, and they were just like, no, we're gonna pick up you instead of Kitty first.
Yeah. And so we see Kitty on a ship because I guess no planes are going to Genosha and stuff, or no like metal balls like in Evolution. Mm-hmm. So Kitty's on the ship. She's looking at the little flyer of Genosha, which is the same as the billboard earlier. And then the copter comes
because it was for peace, for equality, for mutants, or some order like of that. Those three phrases. Yeah. And
the helicopter comes down, and she doesn't even like hesitate. She like phases into the helicopter. That's so great.
No.
Okay, everybody said they love Kitty in Evolution. I think I like this Kitty because she seems very comfortable with her powers. We'll see how her personality is like, but I like the.
We haven't gotten too much of her personality yet. Yeah. So. But we only got her like kind of being like kind of like bratty in the danger room, but that like we also saw Kurt, who was kind of like a prick in the danger room. So
I like I like coming into a superhero show where it's not an origin story, so we're just seeing superheroes be superheroes, and so that was that.
Well, like we were saying, this is not the origin of the band. This is getting the band back together.
Yeah, and so now they kind of do have a team, at least 4 of them. Granted, 2 of them are teenage. I guess 18 still teenage. Yeah, they're both still teenagers. Like
they're legally teenagers.
Yeah, older teenagers. Yeah, so they get back to the mansion. Rogue is waiting on them, and Wolverine has the reaction I would have is like, can we talk? Because that's sus. Like if you just heard like you went to go work the enemy, and she's like, listen, I don't want to. I went in there to get information, so I'm just here to tell you that they're going to go try to go after Kelly at the press conference at the manufacturing plant. He's like, okay, well, I guess we have our X-Men now. It's 5, right? So then at that, and they did a good job of making her seem believable, with the exception of how quick it was. I think that was the thing that was like, well, that was really quick to trust.
Logan turned on a dime.
Yeah.
But I think that also plays into like, he so wants her to be back on the team that he's like using poor judgment.
Yeah.
That was my like interpretation of it, of like, Wolverine thinking this through wouldn't have let that slide so easily. So,
and he's still distracted by the musk of Beast in that. Or that's my explanation for everything now. Why is Wolverine not acting normal? Beast smells in that space. He's
awful. Absolutely awful. You can't get the smell of Beast out from like those keyboards on the computer and such.
He's getting one of those deep cleaners. Anyway, God, we're in our 40s. So
thanks, Rob.
Yeah. At the press conference, Warren's dad reveals that he knows that Rogue is on her way. He's like, I kind of want. He tells his son, he's like, I kind of want, or is his son or the soldier? I didn't write down who it was.
Well, it's not that he knows Rogue is on their way. He knows the Brotherhood as a whole is on their way.
Because he gave the information.
And Warren is like, oh, you didn't tell him at all, did you? And he's like, no.
Yeah, so it'll be better if he gets attacked, because then we'll have like the headline we need, or the sound bite, or the the fear to bring the Prowlers, the Registration Act, everything we wanted back.
Yeah, everything we wanted, as he's telling his mutant son this shit. What is it? It's people who have had their face ripped off by monkeys are being pro-monkey or something like that, or pro-tiger.
Oh yeah. Oh, actually, so
what's the meme?
Leopards. So.
Leopards, yes.
So I was actually on Francesca Ramsey's podcast last year, and so she's not the originator of the phrase, but she had her song go viral of like, I never thought the leopards would eat my face. And so now she's become like a green screen meme with the sound. So whenever there's a headline of like something backfiring on someone, like they overlay that song. So that's that thing.
Yeah.
So we see the Brotherhood.
They're never going to go after my kid.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're not.
I saw, I'm not going to get into the political side of this, but like this farmer that was like, why'd you vote for this person? It's like, because you employ the kind of people that he doesn't want to be legal anymore. And he's like, well, he wouldn't do that to us. We're like, does he even know you're alive? Like,
Nope.
let alone you. Anyway, it's funny what exceptions people will make, and that's on any side of any sort of opinion. Whenever someone's like, well, not me, I'm like, says who? Says who? Like, even if it's in writing, it's only half true, let alone just on the goodness of someone's word. But then we see the Brotherhood. They're setting up essentially like a sniper thing, which at first I was like, oh, that's kind of a letdown. But also you have Domino on your team, so that makes sense. So she's setting up, I don't know, guns, something.
Well, it originally implies it's like a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
But then, you know, she's just like getting ready and stuff like that. And Toad sees the helicopter, and then Domino does her like, I'm going to drop down. And then you realize it's not a gun with bullets. It's bouncy balls, essentially. Which that I think was the moment you were talking about earlier, where she literally just like casually falls off the roof and her legs perfectly grab on, and then she hits perfect shots. Like, I thought they did a great job of showcasing her power here. Because wasn't it like 92 literally showed like flashing light as her power, which made no fucking sense in Genosha?
But see, that's the thing is like, when I said like Rogue's powers didn't physically manifest, I'm just like wired to like, I want to see a glow when something's happening, or the waves coming out of Xavier's head, you know, when he's talking to people and stuff. But I get it. I get it. That's not the vibe of this show, so I'm not going to expect it now. But like, so at first it's like, what is she doing? And like, because there were like orbs or something. And I'm like, oh, right, it's Domino. So she's just kind of shooting haphazardly in there, and it's going to just...
And they're going to hit and bounce and do everything she wants it to.
And so it looks like it takes out like roof supports and stuff and kind of makes the building cave a little bit.
Yeah, and like lighting fixtures and stuff to start smashing down and such, too.
And then the X-Men come in the helicopter, and Beast is like, Kitty, phase us in. I'm like, oh, we are at like high level.
So... I watched this episode last night, and Rod watched it today, and I shot Rod the note. What was my exact phrasing?
Oh, was that what you were talking about?
I said, at 3 minutes and 28 seconds remaining, you're going to say, what the fuck, at the screen in a good way.
Okay, gotcha. I thought it was going in. I was tired.
No, so... This was the time where I literally shot you the text messages. I'm like, this is the time code.
And it wasn't, I was like, wow, okay, so next time we see Storm, I'm expecting, like, glass from the sand of the desert. So, because, like, we're at, like, high level, everybody, to the point where, like, she phases through, but she phases through the bottom and kind of, like, almost, like, lifts the helicopter to phase it in, you know? And she's like touching it.
Like she's like grabbing into it somewhere to hold on to it, which I don't know how that works if you're partially phased. Like it was wild. And they phase into the middle of the auditorium with a helicopter.
I thought that was very unwise for someone like Beast.
Yes, that was my thought too.
Because it was like if you're trying to be low key, because they don't have any evidence that the Brotherhood are in there yet.
Nope.
Maybe the shots, but if anything, the shots would have indicated they're not inside. So they just phase an entire helicopter into like a convention center, essentially. I mean, it's a manufacturing plant, but they're having like a little like
a
rally.
Convention room.
Yeah. And of course, everybody's like freaking out because they just got shot by a bunch of like whatever those rubber bullet bouncy things are, and then a helicopter appeared
inside a building. Inside a building.
And then there's a big old fight. This is my favorite thing to say here. And then Domino takes another shot and takes out the copter, and it
inside a building.
And so that was like, that's why that was unwise. Because also I don't know a lot about science, but
like, I'm pretty sure if you put a helicopter inside a building, it's not going to stay in the air long because there's not air for it to suck. Yeah, there's like
lift and everything. So Warren saves Rogue. I guess he's not concerned about being caught by news anymore. Also, the news is capturing everything, mostly Beast taking out soldiers.
Well, the Warren part is the only one that I feel like got away with being low key, because Rogue has like a gun pointed at her face, and then an MRD troop just kind of gets knocked out from behind, like he doesn't have his wings out and stuff like that. So it's like during the chaos, I could see somebody getting away with that kind of scenario.
He's just like hovering over that line the whole time. But yeah, the news is capturing everything, and they seem to be focusing on Beast because Beast is taking out a bunch of MRDs.
Which didn't that happen in 92?
Kind of.
where it was a false flag with the Friends of Humanity,
Yeah, basically.
and they got him on camera.
Yeah.
I could be messing up which show it was, but I thought it was
I think
92.
it was 92. Yeah, that's why he spent the whole like first season essentially in jail.
No, it was a later season one
Oh, okay.
because he got captured at the facility in season one.
Oh yeah, when they.
But there was
in.
there was one where it was like
Oh.
there was an attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the spot I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, when they were out
Yeah.
on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a while back. It's 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just posted. We have 3 years.
Yeah, I think it will literally be like Monday is 3 years from the first posting or something like that.
Nice.
So
Here we are.
Yep. But yeah, so it was they got Wolverine attacking the MRD, Kitty smashing one in the face with a gun, and Beast on there. So they got a good amount of the X-Men attacking. MRD is government, like they're the equivalent of like a National Guard or something like that. So yeah.
And so then Wolverine slashes out of the building. I do appreciate that this time he did the X. That's what I mean. I think
He does the X, but then he kicks through it too. Yeah.
And the X-Men escape. And then Bobby like seals it up with some ice. And Wolverine's like, we were set up. It's like, yeah, like not that it was obvious you got set up, but you also just barged into like a thing that was happening.
With a helicopter inside a fucking building.
They escape with Warren.
Well, they start to go back because they don't see Rogue. And then Warren pulls up in the limo and he's like, get in.
Yeah.
She's good. I saw her leave.
Yeah.
So,
and then when they X-Men are watching the news about the Registration Act being enacted, like I think they said like the next day or something.
Yeah, Kelly's on TV and he's talking about how the president has already said he's putting it through the next day. So
and then that's when Warren gets off the phone and he's like, well, she's not with the MRD, so she must be safe somewhere. I was like, I don't know what would make you assume that. She didn't go back with you during an escape. Like, I guess she's rogue or whatever, but also like there has to be a little bit of suspicion there,
Yeah.
right? For that.
And I'm also curious what Rogue's powers are in this version of her, because right now we've only seen her being able to absorb power, but like she didn't fly or do some of the stuff that we know from like the 97, 92 version of Rogue. So I'm like, how strong is this version of Rogue? We we get a little bit of a leaning that she's closer to Evolution Rogue than to TAS 97 Rogue.
It's not the Rogue that has met Carol Danvers yet.
Yeah, the one who could literally be like leave impressions in metal walls Rogue. Yeah.
Then we cut to the Brotherhood house, which is like basically a clubhouse because Domino's like playing pool.
It looks like it's in the penthouse of an abandoned building that has a giant hole in the wall. So,
and then out of the darkness, Rogue comes up and she gives that smirk, and so like you realize like, oh, she set him up. So she did like a not a triple agent, but she did like a 3-time. Well, not 3-time. I guess I
think technically this is double agent 5 right now. Yeah.
So she like led the X-Men to believe that she was with them, but she's still with the Brotherhood. So and that was the cliffhanger we left it on. I like the mystery. I'm still in me personally, because I'm dumb, piecing together the events of the first episode. But I like that it's making me think about stuff and that it's action packed, and then they're all superheroes. If they need to, they can just turn it on like Kitty did. I
like the versions of these characters that we're getting from a narrative perspective. You heard me say this in 97. The X-Men are at their best when things are not going well for them. And that's a really good spot for this story. And it feels like it has stakes because shit is just continually going wrong, whether they're dead or missing, not having Xavier, not having Jean, without literally putting a bottle in his hand. Cyclops looks like, like a degenerate alcoholic in this episode. Like, there's like, shit is not good for this entire team. Wolverine, even one part that we didn't discuss earlier, the reason why he went to Cyclops in the first place is nobody's going to follow this team if he's the leader. He's even having like this issue with himself. Beast isn't the confident version. So it's like, it's literally a guy on the outside giving information, which is Warren, a turncoat, 2 teenagers, an insecure Beast, and a Logan who is the de facto leader, even though he doesn't want to be. Like, that's an interesting team.
Yeah, I would also argue an unwise beast because he had them take a helicopter inside of a building.
This is the beast. This is the beast that is drinking just off camera.
Yeah, there you go.
Sure, if fucking the Bard would have gone into the building. Let's go.
Yeah.
No.
But otherwise, yeah, no, I dig it. I don't know what else to say about that. We talked through everything I thought I had thoughts about, but I'm excited to see like the next episode and where it pieces together. I'm assuming it's going to be still a little bit disjointed because that seems to be the theme. Is like it kind of being not quite a Memento thing, but they're giving us pieces, and then it's kind of up to us to like put them in order. But I dig it, and I like the art style. I like the action.
I'm curious how this next episode is going to be because we know it was a 3-part season premiere, even though it was across 2 different weeks. So I'm curious how the episode as a 3-parter kind of like wraps up. And kicks off the rest of the show. I want to see more of Domino. Like I dig this version of the character. Like, you know, I like the character better as a hero, but at the same time, it's like, no, this is a believable version of her too. So I dig that.
Yeah. Was there?
And we still haven't even seen outside of the intro Emma Frost.
Oh, that's true.
Because we know she's a member of the team because she's in the intro.
Yeah.
You know,
who else was in the intro we didn't see yet? Was that she the only one?
I believe so, because we've seen Nightcrawler, we've seen Cyclops, like we've seen the rest of the team. So
and this is like only tangential, but I forget, I think it was maybe New Rockstar's Break Room or something. One of the comic book podcasts I watch proposed something that has no basis whatsoever. It was just and I might be wrong, but it might have been Gina Ippolito that said this, because Gina gets everything right apparently. Because I think she was the one that predicted RDJ coming back as Doom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as a dumb.
Okay.
She's the Rod of the Break Room. Like, maybe they're a mutant. But they said, like, wouldn't it be fun if when Brave New World comes out on Valentine's Day, and we see the new Harrison Ford Hulk and Captain America Sam Wilson go to like a gala. And then Sebastian Shaw and Emma Frost turn around. And I
would dig the shit out of that.
And it's just that there's no bearing on the story. They're just there. And then that's just like kind of like another, like that's a beast moment or something, like just something that's kind of dripping the X-Men world into that would be a fun little reveal, especially with all the government stuff.
So we've talked about this in the past. I hate the misuse of the word Easter egg.
Yeah.
That would be a great Easter egg.
Yeah.
That would be a fantastic fucking Easter egg, because to your point about this theory, it's not, all of a sudden at the end of the movie there the Hulk and Sam Wilson fight that 2 mutants show up and get involved in the fight.
Yeah.
It's just they're there and they're in the background, but it's like, that's 100% Emma because she has the big poofy coat kind of thing.
Or even if like Ross is like, hey, here's some friends. They're part of like
Sebastian and Emma, and doesn't say anything else. Yeah.
Or he maybe mentions like they're here because they're part of like a group that's helping us with something. They were like, ooh, that's interesting. Anyway, were there any fun facts about the episode or anything else we got to tie up? Okay. All right. Well, that's good.
No. But I will say, because Rod has worn a shirt I have given him as a Christmas gift on previous episodes.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
This shirt was Rod's Christmas gift to me this year. So
I'm glad you like it. I never know
felt appropriate to wear. It's fine.
I'm glad you like it.
I mean, Rod's best gift, if you haven't seen it, is somewhere in our feed on Instagram. He got me a mug that says Cyclops Tears.
Yeah. And
that is hands down amazing.
And whiskey.
And whiskey.
Also, you got me the skateboard here, which also I spent my holiday break. It doesn't look like it, but I mounted everything on this wall,
reinforcing the wall so that shit doesn't all fall off.
So I took everything down, and because I'm a musician, I have a bunch of mic stands, and so and since I don't gig anymore, I just record here. I have a bunch of mic stands that don't usually get used, so there's a network of mic stands back there you can't see behind everything. Everything's mounted so that now things won't fall on my head. When I'm saying, this is my couch where I do all the, hey, does anybody remember that time? It falls on my head. So yeah, the Cyclops skateboard and the skateboard that Adobe gave me are secured against the wall.
Good. And then it's not lit up because obviously you'd be backlit as shit, but you have the Millennial sleepover the light behind you.
From
So
Swoop and Dirty Hollywood. But also, I don't have it on because it's like, this isn't that podcast. I thought it'd be weird to have it like lit up.
We just need to like back you with tons and tons of different like lights.
I was trying to figure out if I could light the Cyclops was waiting for me at all, but I figured anything that I would put here would just
reflect.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be in front of it. Or actually, if I put my hand back here, it'll focus on it. But also, I don't have the infrastructure above here to point anything at it, so anything would be there would just like blow out the anyway.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us.
Podcast problems.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, not spoilers, drop them in the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on the podcast app you're choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, and CastBox. I think we're still trying to be number one at some point on there, but
sure. Deal with it.